Tēnā koutou. This is the story of Kapo. After Tarawai returned to his uncles and they pushed Kati Māmoe further south, Te Aparangi sent word to Muki to come and marry his daughter Henderaki. Muki travelled south and they had 3 boys, Tuki Taharaki, Kapo and Te Pahi. Tuki Taharaki was very, very sick, and his brothers thought he was sick from something called whaiwhaia, or black magic. He had been cursed by his cousin Te Wera. Tuki Taharaki did not think it was black magic, and he warned his brothers, "When I die, do not seek revenge for my death. Just bury me." But when Tuki Taharaki passed away, Kapo was so grief-stricken, he didn't listen to the words of his brother, and he sought revenge. He took a war party over to Purako Nui, and there he found Te Wera at the house of his brother. They surrounded the house, and Te Wera was inside, and he started to do a prayer, karakia. But every time he went to finish it, he made a mistake. He knew that was a sign. It was a sign that only one of them would escape. The spears started to be thrown into the house, and Te Wera took off. He dived under the canoe waiting on the beach and swam out to shore. He turned around and said, "Go home and feed your children. Tomorrow the day shall be mine." Te Wera swam all the way over to Karitani, to Huriawa Peninsula, where his pa was. He got a war party together, and he travelled over to the Otago harbour. He found one of the princesses, one of the beautiful daughters of a chief who was gathering flax, and he took her on board the boat and he killed her. They rowed their canoe beneath the pa at Pukekura, and they shouted to the people inside, and they tipped the canoe to one side so the people could see the poor girl lying in the bottom of the boat. And Te Wera said, "Now we are even." But Kapo and Muki and Te Pahi did not think they were even. So they sent for Tauka, the older cousin, to come down. At the same time, Te Wera sent for Tauka to come down, but he wanted Tauka to make peace. Tauka ignored Te Wera, and Te Wera was so angry he sent a war party up, and he started another war with Tauka's people who lived by Oamaru. Eventually Te Wera said, "Right, I'm going to go to the pa myself and see if I can make peace." While he was in the pa, someone threw a little stick at one of Te Wera's sons, and Te Wera said, "Right, I'm sick of this," and they started to attack while they were in the pa. And Te Wera got the upper hand, and he managed to kill Muki, and he chased Kapo, and Kapo was quick, and he chased him over that ridge you can see in the distance, and someone had a spear, and he speared him in the bottom. Blood come out, and they named the place Kumu Kumu Whero, which means red bum. Then Te Wera arrived at this inlet, and he was running, but he was injured. And Kapo made it onto the island. He climbed up the cliff, and Te Wera and his people grabbed him, and they killed him. And they cut open his tummy, and they spread his guts all over the island. And that island is called Te Taka Ki Taka, or Te Piro o Kapo, the island where Kapo's guts were spread everywhere. Te Wera returned to his pa, and eventually Tauka came and laid siege, and they surrounded the pa at Karitani for 6 months. But Te Wera had fresh water in there, and he had access to plenty of food, so he could survive. He couldn't starve him out. But eventually Te Wera snuck out under the cover of darkness and he headed south. Some of his people stopped at Purako Nui at a pā called Māpoutahi, and in the middle of the night Tauka attacked the pā and all the bodies were thrown into the water. And in the morning the tide come in and the bodies rolled into big piles, and a pile is called a pū, and a pile of sticks is called a pūrako. And so Purako Nui means a big pile of logs, because that's what the bodies look like lying on the beach. And eventually Tauka pushed Te Wera as far south as Stewart Island, where he passed away as an old man from a rotten disease. Meanwhile, back at Pukekura, Tauka had put Te Pahi in charge of the pā, and the people of Otako through to this day are the descendants of Te Pahi and Muki.